It's Classic 263. Now we're talking back to back with Tammy Moyo with the song Tekere Local. Always like her. It's the station of your talk, your music, and everything in between. Now, shortly, we'll be getting into the program, The Daily Dose, and we'll be tackling skills development as a catalyst for economic development and the future of jobs being a key priority area. So make sure that you don't go anywhere. It's just gone 12 minutes after 7 o'clock. We'll just go for a short break, but we should be starting a little before 7:15 because we have so many issues that we need to unpack with the Honorable Minister, who's already in studio and vying to go. This is Classic 263. Now we're talking. And don't forget, talk made easy.
Talk made easy. Now we're talking on the Daily Dose. Only on Classic 263. Let's get you to the weekend. Friday Soul Sessions. Every Friday with no Chanda.
So every Friday we wind down with Friday Soul Sessions at 8:15 right up to 9, and it's strictly soul and R&B. But as always, you know, the queen of current affairs is in the building, Mo Chanda. And right about now we get into the business of those topical issues, and we're talking skills development as a catalyst for economic development. Let's go for the Daily Dose. This is Classic 263. Now we're talking.
Talk made easy. Now we're talking on the Daily Dose. Only on Classic 263.
Welcome to the program, The Daily Dose. My name is Monica Chanda, and as always, we tackle topical issues on the program. We look at those economic, political, social, technological issues on the program, and it is here where we get your policymakers, your decision makers, to come in and answer to those pertinent issues right here on the Daily Dose. And now the backbone of any thriving economy is its workforce, and a skills audit enables the identification of gaps and the formulation of those targeted interventions. Today, we also see Zimbabwe has laid out a skills development agenda that has been driven by industry collaboration with academia. Furthermore, it is important to note that African countries, they actually value the importance of digital and technical skills. That's for future workforce. The latest Future of Jobs report from the World Economic Forum actually found that 5 major macro trends are expected to disrupt and approximately 22% of jobs by 2030 it is. But this with the promise of creating at least 170 million new roles. This is something to really tap into. However, the overarching challenge identified in the report pertains to skills gaps, which are viewed as a primary barrier to business transformation globally. The 2/3 of business transformation and businesses are recognizing this impediment, addressing skill shortages emerging as a critical imperative for sustained growth and innovation, investing in skills development and training to align with digital advancements and emerging technologies. On today's edition of the Daily Dose, we sit down with the Minister of Skills Audit and Development, Professor Paul Mavima, as we look at that skills development agenda as a catalyst for economic development and the future of jobs. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to the Daily Dose, Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Monica. I'm really happy to be here.
Let's get straight into the conversation, talking us through what has been done by government in terms of the identification of skills gaps. Let's start there.
Yeah, Monica, we as a ministry were set up in 2023 after the elections and the setting up of the new administration following those elections in 2023. Government had already done a comprehensive skills audit in 2018, which had indicated very, very big gaps in skills. Overall, that skills audit indicated that we had a 62% gap in our skills in the nation. Specifically, areas that were lacking were in the engineering fields, general, electrical, mechanical, civil, and other engineering fields. But we had also serious gaps in the medical field, given our population and the number, say, of doctors that are needed in order to adequately serve our population. We were really down by almost 90% in terms of that medical field, including other professions there, your technicians, laboratory technicians, even your nursing staff. We had serious problems also in agriculture in terms of the optimal levels that we should have agricultural engineering and the like, in mining, almost every sector of the economy. Where we had adequate supply were in the business administration side, your commerce, your accounting. There we're doing fairly well. Then once the ministry was formed, we wanted to confirm this to see where we are after the 2018. And, we conducted over 39 consultation meetings with all stakeholders you can think of, sectoral representatives, with national employment councils, with all the portfolio ministries, as well as the parastatals and state agencies that fall under each ministry. We consulted with church organizations, civic societal organizations, as well as people with disabilities, any stakeholder you can think of. And there was a confirmation from these focus group discussions that we still lacked in the areas that I have already talked about. But in addition to that, overall, there are soft skills that we lack. So we have done that. We have produced the reports of those consultations. We have also looked at, as a benchmark, we have looked at disability needs assessment in VTCs that serve people with disabilities, to see the architecture there. Are they placed well enough to serve that constituency? Do they have the infrastructure? Do they have the human capital, the trainers, to serve that population? We have done that. We are currently on a tour of Binga, doing needs assessment of Binga as a representative of our rural districts, to see what kind of skills are needed, what kind of gaps do we have there. So these are some of the things that
Okay.
we have done as a ministry. Right now we have initiated sectoral skills audits focusing on mining and agriculture. These are going to be precursors for another comprehensive national skills audit. We have learned from the 2018 audit. We have seen some of the shortfalls that we had in terms of the methodology, also in terms of how do we follow up to make sure that what was identified as the gaps are now being covered with training programs at universities. We need a measurement program to see if we are now making a difference in terms of covering those gaps.
Okay.
Yeah.
I had to allow you to finish your train of thoughts and obviously to give us a sense of the skills gap, giving us a sense of what has been done in terms of identification of those skills gaps. Now, let's talk about addressing those skills gaps and bridging that gap between the skills needed by employers and the skills possessed by the workforce. Because after all, we're also looking at the future of jobs.
Yes. We, as a nation, I always say this, Monica, as a nation, if we really want to achieve Vision 2030, which is upper middle income status, and by the way, we are on course to achieving that. We still have 5 years to go, but we have done fairly well in Zimbabwe. And there is news to that effect, and it's very positive news. But if we have to do well as a nation, we have to pay attention primarily to the human capital element of national development. A well-prepared human capital in terms of skills and competencies, but also a well looked after in terms of health and wellness human capital. Once you have that, you can go and conquer the world. Most of the countries that have done well since time immemorial have focused on developing their human capital in these two ways: giving them skills and competencies, and also making sure that the health is taken care of. So that's what we have to do. In terms of what we have identified, we now need to make sure that our training institutions are following up with crafting programs directly to cover those gaps. If it's our universities, are we having the programs in the STEM area, in engineering, different fields of engineering, in areas such as biotechnology, in areas such as animal health, in areas, are we training enough doctors? If universities, yes, polytechnics, then technical and vocational institutions, we have to direct the training to make sure that it's addressing those gaps that we have identified. The other thing that we have to do is, so that's as far as curriculum programs are concerned at the tertiary level. But we also have to go down to primary and secondary education, always to have a double loop learning approach to curriculum development. We can't say we have addressed our curriculum, we have reviewed our curriculum, and then we sit back for another 5 years and then, or 7 years like we did between 2017 and 2023 or 2024.
So there needs to be that
continuous review and making sure what we have agreed as a curriculum framework is actually being implemented. and the necessary resources, teaching and learning resources, the necessary training of the teachers is taking place. The resourcing of teachers with the knowledge that they need, and the pedagogical approaches that are necessary to give us the competencies that we need has to be a continuous process.
Well, I understand you are taking it to the curriculum by virtue of the fact that, yes, I did ask you, bridging the gap between the skills needed by employers and the skills possessed by the workforce. We still have to go back to look at what is then churned out. But I want us to revisit this, because obviously thousands of graduates are being churned out each year. And some of the questions coming to light is, are we having the right kind of skills, the right training for the job market in order to be globally competitive, to meet the demands for an ever-changing global economy?
Yeah, we have had serious complaints coming from industry that there is really a mismatch between what they expect and what they are getting. Not just in terms of the general, what do you call it, the general class of jobs or professions, but within one profession. Let's take electrical engineering, for example. Are we getting the electrical engineer who can bring value to industry? You know, that question, they are saying we are not being answered in the affirmative, which means that even the approach to teaching electrical engineers has to be interrogated.
But then that approach, Honorable Minister, because like you say, there's some sort of mismatch. But we're seeing a past generation of skill sets. You took, for example, electrical engineers that were churned out before. These are the same electrical engineers that have developed the first world, your Americas, your Canadas, your Australias, your United Kingdoms. What is lacking in this new generation of graduates? If we say
we are basically, you know, we are saying, we are looking at how we are doing it in Zimbabwe.
Okay.
Not necessarily the way it's being done globally. And we are saying, as Zimbabwe, we have to do it in a way that produces a graduate who can give value to industry.
But we would produce that graduate who started becoming part of that development in the diaspora. I'm talking about a generation of Zimbabwean skills that became an export.
Yes, it became an export, but have we continued in the same manner?
That's the question.
That's the question. What was the effect, for example, of sanctions on our institutions in terms of even the facilities? Did we keep pace with global trends in our workshops, in our laboratories, different kinds of laboratories? Even making sure that our professors have the teaching and learning materials that gives them the wherewithal to produce a first-class engineer. You know what happened in 2008. Our universities were in a sorry state. Professors would decide whether they want to go to work or not. And sometimes they went to work out of just a drive. That was the situation in 2008. I'm glad that since the advent of the Second Republic, a lot of changes have taken place at our universities. The question now becomes, have we reached that optimal level of provision of infrastructure, amenities, tools of trade to make sure that we are doing well? Then also, this dialogue between industry and the institutions of training?
The academia?
Yes, has it taken place adequately enough for them to then align and say what the way we are training here is actually satisfying what industry is demanding? What role should industry play in the training pre-service training of these various people who will then graduate? What role should industry play? How can we make sure that our students have effective internship, graduate training programs, even as they go through their days at the university or polytechnic or technical and vocational institutions? When we send them into industry, is industry then providing them with proper pre-service training which prepares them to? So it's not just a problem of the training institutions, but it's a holistic problem that brings, or is supposed to bring, normatively, it's supposed to bring all the players together.
Okay.
So that we say, now we are producing the product that will serve the specific area, the specific industry, but overall the nation as a whole in terms of driving the development that we need.
The program is the Daily Dose, and we are hosting the Honourable Minister of Skills Audit and Development, Professor Paul Mavima, as we look at skills development agenda, a catalyst for economic development and the future of jobs. 0719-498-651, 0719-498-651. My WhatsApp number is now open for some of your questions to be posed to the Honourable Minister. And while we await that, still on the issue of industry, the case of adaptability, Honourable Minister.
Yes.
I mean, the evolving nature of work requires individuals to be adaptable and possess, you did speak about critical thinking, you did speak about creativity and problem-solving skills.
Yeah.
So can we confidently say that we have adaptable graduates for skills market?
Surprisingly.
And even green energy skills.
Yes.
Yes.
All those, the so-called skills of the future, we have to make sure that we are training for that. I am sure that's an area that we really have to do. I was given a charge by His Excellency to identify these gaps. And each time I go back to him, he tells me, please take your time and be very clear as to what are the gaps, what do we need to do in order to fill these gaps. He says, even if you delay in producing your reports, as long as you come back to me, telling me specifically to say this and this area is where we need to focus on, and this is how we should do it in terms of making sure that we are producing the graduates that we need. I will be happy. That's what he says to me. You mentioned green
energy
skills.
Yes, because after all, we're talking about sustainability.
Yeah, but we are also talking seriously about fourth industrial revolution skills.
Absolutely.
We also, which has lagged at our universities for a long period of time, a concentration on the soft skills. We have to know how to develop a mind that is critical, that does critical thinking, a mind that is given to problem solving, a mind that is given to leadership is very important, especially when you are training at the university level. You are training people who are going to lead others in the various sectors of the economy. So leadership has to be there. We have, of necessity, we have to train for entrepreneurship. And entrepreneurship almost combines all these things that we're talking about, the adaptability that you are talking about, the critical thinking, the problem solving, can be subsumed under critical thinking. We also, and some Zimbabweans really take this lightly, we also have to train for patriotism, because patriotism is what is going to motivate someone to say, I'm going to offer my competencies and my skills for the development of my nation. We may have a very big pool of skills and competencies, but without the application of those skills and competencies, we're not going to move an inch as far as national development. So we have to train for patriotism, for moving this country forward, because we voluntarily want to do that.
Tying that with that patriotism, let's talk about skills flight, addressing the challenges of skills migration. And even as a country, despite the fact that we have that skills migration, leveraging on those skills that have actually left the country.
No, there are two things. I'll be very candid with you.
Please do.
Very candid with you. We had the skills flight because of the economic downturn that visited us for over 2 decades, Monica. So a lot of Zimbabweans, with their own personal high expectations, could not realize their aspirations in an economy that was going down. So we you know, a lot of the doctors, the engineers that were trained, remember, this country undertook a very comprehensive educational program, from basic education to university level training, apprenticeships. You know, the 1980s and 90s were like the heyday of education and training in this country. And we really owe it to the independence government for coming up with that program. But the introduction of ESAP, starting in the early 90s, then the imposition of sanctions in the early 2000s, contributed to an environment where, from an individual perspective, people said, I'm going to apply my trade in Australia, in the UK, in the United States. So they left. Right. I am now glad that recent reports are basically saying our economy is doing extremely well. You know, we are grown. There is now the revival of the manufacturing sector, which has become, as of the most recent report, the leader in terms of contribution to GDP. There's been, you know, a revival in the mining sector. The retail was actually dominating, by the way, and agriculture, save for years when we have a drought, has also been doing extremely well. We have seen the economy starting to move. The Minister of Finance was telling us today that our economy has jumped from, I think it was 26 billion 2 years ago or so, but now it's at 46 billion in terms of GDP. So we are doing well. People will start coming back.
You are guaranteed they will start coming
They will
back.
start coming back. But also we have to have deliberate programs to lure them back. Either through remote contributions of Zimbabweans. This afternoon I had 2 Zimbabweans, highly skilled people, in the areas of this other guy is a statistician who is now incorporated, AI and other technologies into,
And these are
data
some of the big
analysis.
skills that are needed.
Yes, based in the UK. And this guy, when he tells you the companies that he's been helping to improve their productivity, including Tesla, including Rolls-Royce.
We're talking about that green energy.
Yes, including all very big multinational companies that this Zimbabwe has been helping. I had to take him to meet with the Minister of Finance as well as the Minister of Industry and Commerce, so that we can tap into the knowledge that he has. There is another Zimbabwean who was based in the United States, who is now back, who is concentrating on energy efficiency. And he has come up with a product that can gather data about, for example, here, the entirety of Pocket Hill. Are you managing your energy efficiently? And that make suggestions as to how we can almost automatically make those suggestions.
And that's
And
obviously the
control.
adoption of technologies. new
Yes,
technologies.
yes. So I'm just giving you an anecdote of two Zimbabweans who have seen it necessary after gaining all this experience in the diaspora, who are now saying, I'll go back home and contribute in the energy sector, in policy development, which is data-driven, like the other guy, in making sure that our industry is competitive. And I'm just hoping. And by the way, there was a World Economic Forum analysis, the one that you referred
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yes.
to, of which Zimbabwe companies were surveyed. Zimbabwe comes at a higher level in terms of the appetite to adopt and adapt to the global trends in technology. Our companies are indicating that they are ready, they want it. Much more in Africa, it was us, then Egypt and other countries, but we're high up there in terms of saying we are interested in adopting even these disruptive technologies into our industries.
These disruptive technologies, a question was posed in terms of the role of digital technologies in promoting skills. You kind of unpacked that, but now the question I feel you need to address is in terms of the strategy for developing AI-ready manpower in Zimbabwe. Do we have that? And obviously, is there a robust infrastructure to even adopt AI? Because it's one thing to say we're ready, but is the infrastructure?
Yeah, most of our universities now have courses in AI, in all the digital skills that you can think of, in robotics, automation. You go to the University of Zimbabwe, you see that they have these programs. In areas such as cybersecurity and others, you see Zimbabwe and universities are starting to do that. But I think we need to do much more. It is my thinking that there are other African countries less developed in terms of basic education, basic literacy, basic numeracy, but which have progressed much more and more aggressively in terms of producing people with these new skills. Rwanda, to some extent Kenya, South Africa, Morocco, Egypt, to some extent Nigeria is also becoming very aggressive in terms of pushing. And I would want to see Zimbabwe also becoming very aggressive in that manner. You know, I am going to be preemptive here in terms of informing the nation that we are working on rolling out centers that are non-conventional, but centers where we bring a variety of factors. Our local companies that deal with these issues, and international players, your Googles, your Microsoft. And
Basically
others.
Silicon Valley?
Yes, to train here and also have certification of these companies, and then also do the incubation of related businesses. So this becomes a one-stop center where we are developing entrepreneurs and at the same time people getting the technical skills, you know, the technical skills for the gig economy. And we want it to be such that if you are motivated enough, Monica, you could spend 24 hours there. And there are still facilitators where you can go and just immerse yourself in this thing. We are working on the collaborations now, local companies, private, state enterprises, and also these international corporations to help us. We'll need support in terms of making sure that the computers that are there are top-notch computers, as well as the facilitators that we use. Even some of them are going to be remote. Zimbabweans with skills and are in the diaspora can work with our learners and students so that we really provide these skills that we need. Yeah.
It looks like you did preempt. We kind of prodded until the minister actually preempted on certain developments that will be coming to, that will be happening in Zimbabwe. And the beauty of the Daily Dose, where we bring the voices, the authorities, the policymakers to unpack on these issues. And we're glad that we managed to actually get the minister to kind of preempt. We have another question, Honorable Minister, speaking on the issue where qualification frameworks, evaluating the academic credentials of Zimbabweans who've actually studied abroad. This also the avoidance of fraudulent qualifications.
Yeah, that's very important. We need to know our people we have sent outside, maybe through scholarship programs. By the way, the ministry has also done an analysis of the scholarships landscape, the various programs that are run for scholarships, internal scholarships as well as external scholarships. And we have now produced a report that tries to rationalize that process so that whatever scholarships we are getting into are talking to our needs here, especially to fill the gaps that we have. But when they come back, we really have to be satisfied and know what competencies and skills they have gotten. And then we also have to know the authenticity of their qualifications. We have developed a national qualifications framework, which allows us to, to do that analysis. It's not a responsibility of the ministry. There are other agencies that are responsible for that, but it's fundamentally important. But the issue of
fake qualifications.
You can never really completely eradicate it. Yeah, because people are in love with titles.
Okay.
Yeah, I've done a master's, I've done a PhD, I have certificated this and that. Some are coming from diploma mills. You pay $3,000 and the next day you have your qualification. You know, there are people who are given to that. I mean, it boosts their self-esteem, I guess. Or
But at the same time, it
it's
would
also-
undermine the value
No,
of
yeah.
credentials.
This is why. I mean, but you know, the determination of whether if one has an authentic training or skill or certificate is the responsibility of public authorities. So we can't then say it undermines. We have to have gatekeepers who say this is not true,
Absolutely.
so that we avoid people getting into our various institutions and masquerading. So it's a responsibility that we should accept as public officials to do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
It would be unfortunate if I were not to bring the issue around the recent SADC high-level ministerial roundtable dialogue, especially when it was looking at impactful foundational literacy and numeracy in the SADC.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, Zimbabwe holds the chairmanship of the SADC.
Yes.
And if we are to looking even at some of the SADC objectives on regional integration,
Yeah.
let's talk to the recent high-level ministerial meeting itself in terms of foundational learning, the access to foundational education,
Yeah.
and even the issue of integrating, how Zimbabwe is integrating this through skills development.
Yeah. In actual fact, Monica, if for any country, the starting point is basic literacy. It's the foundation for comprehending all the other training that comes. So that foundation has to be there. It has also to be, it has to be a foundation that promotes numeracy. So your mathematics, your logical thinking should be taught at a very early age. Now also, if we are talking of digital skills, there has to be digital literacy at the foundational level.
Indeed.
Yeah, once you have that, you can have the building blocks now to add to it.
And those puzzle pieces fall into place?
Yeah, they fall into place. We can't have a sufficiently developed STEM program without numeracy, and literacy at the foundational level. Literacy that goes to technical literacy or digital literacy, literacy that goes to just getting a document, reading it and understanding and interpreting it. That's the basis for acquiring higher level skills and competencies. This is why in 2016, 2017, Zimbabwe said we are going to start early, hence the mainstreaming of early childhood development. And now we say 4 years we start. By 5 years, they are supposed to be able to read and write, and also to do basic mathematical calculations. So that's what we did. And another thing that we also did was to say Even when we're teaching English, it has to be taught in the mother tongue. So, Shona, and then you are bringing English concepts, but the children have to be taught in Shona. You know, again goes back to us promoting our own identity and things like that. So foundational learning is very, very important. And that's what then builds into the development of skills and competencies at a higher level.
I think we just have about a minute. Maybe finally, in terms of Zimbabwe achieving national development aspirations, how does your ministry feed into Vision 2030?
Everything that I've been talking about is about us feeding into the Vision 2030. There is a human capital development component or a thematic area in the vision, in the NDS 1, and it's also going to be there in NDS 2, where we talk about the same things. What skills do we need? How do we develop them? So our strategy at that level has to say, how do we get this human capital developed? And how do we develop a human capital that can aid this country to achieve its aspirations? We are at 3,000 per capita income, by the way. We are
there.
only 600 below what we want to achieve
as an upper middle income economy?
Yeah, upper middle income economy. But to do that, we need the skills that will drive every sector of the economy. But we can't stop at 3,600 per capita. No. It's doable to get to 20, to 30, to 40,000 per capita income. And if we get there, imagine what will happen to this country in terms of, the wealth that will be in people's hands. We can't stop. Upper middle income is just the immediate. Over the long term, we want to be among the top economies in the world. Other countries have done it in a generation. Why can't we do it in Zimbabwe? We can achieve high income status in one generation.
It's unfortunate that our time has become so limited, but we want to say thank you to the Honourable Minister of Skills Audit and Development, Professor Paul Mavima. It has been an absolute pleasure hosting you on the Daily Dose.
It is an honor, always, Monica, and thank you.
And thank you, as always, to our avid listeners. Until next time, as we host another topical issue, this has been the Daily Dose. Check your time. It's 8 o'clock. Time for the news.
Bro, at the national leaders,
Honourable Minister!
Zimbabwe continues to strengthen trade with Zambia.